Our next speaker is another one of these courageous women that I really admire. Because this is where we are, and this is this time. That, this is a story that has to be told, and it's just because so many people have had this experience or are having these experiences, and they don't know what to do with this. And this is, they just, they're afraid to talk about it. They're afraid. They're going through the same things. And so I was so excited when I saw another, because we have, Sherry Wilde, fantastic author, and when she told her story, and then Donna came forward, and when, and I was reading her book, and I'll let you tell more about, but when I got to this one being, it was just like, I'll go ahead and give it away if I can, okay? When I got to Croat, and she'll explain more about Croat, when I got to Croat, I was just blown away by the love. And I just was like, oh my God, I want to meet this being. I really, really want to meet this being. And we have to publish this book. This story has to get out there. People have to know this. They have to understand this, and that's what it's all about. And so, and she gets this across. That's what was so beautiful. She got the love that he was trying to express to mankind. She gets it across in her writing. And it was like, we have to do this. And so, and I love, I love what happened. I just absolutely love what happened. So I don't want to take up too much of her time because she's got the most beautiful story here to tell you. So without further ado, her book is From Fear to Love, as she's, my private journey. And I, again, truly admire you, Donna. Donna Lynn.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, okay, this is my very first time public speaking, so I'll try to not be too weird about it. So, my name is Donna Lynn. I talk to aliens, or rather, they talk to me. It started from the time I was about 4 years old. I would wake up with night terrors, so my mom told me. I couldn't remember that young. Just frozen to the bed, just screaming in terror. Couldn't put anything into words what I was experiencing. And my mom would come in and comfort me and say, it's okay, it's just a bad dream, it's just a bad dream, everyone has bad dreams. But as I got older and they continued, I'd wake up, I'd feel a sense of someone staring at me or someone standing by my bed. I'd open my eyes and there would be these big black glossy eyes staring into mine, like reading everything about me. And it makes you feel so vulnerable and, raw, and it takes away your ability to even speak or move, and all you can do is primally scream. And as I got older and older, I kept thinking, well, how does everybody else live this double life? Everybody goes around, goes to school, has their friends, goes to parties, works, pays their bills, and acts like nothing's wrong. But then I go to sleep every night, not every night, but on occasion I'll have these incidents happen that are just so life-changing. They'll take me on a spaceship, they'll talk to me and show me bizarre things, and nobody talks about it. And when my mom said everyone has bad dreams, I thought everyone was probably experiencing this. So why is it such a big, shameful secret that no one's talking about it? And it got too much to try to contain in my head, so I started writing everything down and keeping journals, and I'd wake up and maybe sketch the beings that I saw, or just make comments about where I was taken or what a ship looked like, and just kind of stuff them away in a drawer or a box just to get it out of my head so that then I could just live like a normal person and not have to think about it. But I've come to realize that it is a real reality. It's not a dream. And we define our reality by what we can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. But if you're in a dream world and you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell, then that's real too, right? Or sometimes you wake up from a dream and it feels really real. So I've learned that there are different layers of reality and different levels of reality. And when our ego conscious mind goes to sleep and quiets down, then we can kind of shift over into other realities where we can experience things there and experience other beings there in those other realities. So I had all these notes and journals and sketches just kind of thrown away in drawers and things. And then one day we went on a family camping trip, and I was laying in my tent sleeping, and I heard my niece's little girl have a night terror, and she was screaming and inconsolable. And I'd had them all my life, but I'd never heard someone else have one. And to hear that terror and fear in a little girl, I just knew, I laid there and I knew I had to write this all down so that she could read it. And I know that a lot of the visitation is generational, and probably my own grandparents or great-grandparents had experienced it. And if they had kept diaries or journals that I could have read, it would have helped me so much to not be so afraid and to not think I was crazy. So I started getting all my notes together and putting it into a book form. And a couple years later, my daughter called me and said her daughter had a night terror, who was my granddaughter when she was 3. So that just confirmed. You know, you get confirmations when you decide to do things and you're not sure. You get confirmations along the way. And so I knew I was doing the right thing. And as it came together, I realized I was being told I needed to put it into a book, not just for my immediate family members, but so that all people that wanted to could read it and identify with it and maybe learn from my mistakes and my journey how they can communicate with aliens without the fear that I went through, because it took me many, many years of fear to get to the point where I was at acceptance and now love, where I do love them and I know they love me. They love all of us. They love humanity and they love the earth. So some of the sketches I had of the aliens were in my book, but because they were shrunk down and they were small and they were black and white, I thought I'd redo them in full color up here. And this was one from 1974 when I was a teenager. And at that time, of course, I thought it was just dreams, and I thought that was a fairy. And I had named it Alana. At that time, I liked to write little stories about my dreams, and I was going to write a story about a fairy named Alana. But as I went through my sketches, then I came upon this one that I did around 2005, and again, called it a fairy because they're probably maybe 4 inches tall, 5 inches tall, and they hover in the air and they have wings. And this one has wings that are like, kind of like dragonfly wings with the like window pane effect where they're gossamer and they're transparent and they glitter with rainbow colors. And I've noticed that some of them like to decorate themselves, kind of like we do with jewelry and fix our hair and that. This one had a belt, the other one had a necklace. They're just like us in a lot of ways. And they have all the aliens, except for Croat that I've interacted with, all have little 4 fingers with like tree frogs, like little suction cups on the end. And also, all of them but Croat don't have like real feet. Their feet are like fins or flippers, and they kick through the air like they're treading water in our atmosphere. And that's how some people see them as tall, some people see them as short. From what I see, these, especially the fairy types, are really small, but they can kick themselves up in the air to be at eye level to us. And then this one, I was sound asleep, and I woke up, and it said 12 midnight on my clock, and I sensed a presence, and I looked up, and I was actually sleeping on my side just like that, and I look up, and there's this one laying right above me, kind of just looking at me, just watching me, and I kind of gasped, and as soon as she realized I was awake, she got a look of panic on her face, and she stood up and did something in the air and disappeared through a doorway, like a doorway in the air that was invisible. And I could still sense her presence, and I asked her to come back and said I wouldn't harm her, but she never did. But I noticed all these fairy creatures have kind of golden, puffy hair. She has hers long. The previous one had short, kind of combed up, and the first one had it upswept into kind of a point. And I wonder if they're all the same being or if they're definitely all the same species. And again, they like to fix their hair and wear decorations and things just like we do. And also, if they come to us as fairies, they're not as intimidating. You know, like the Hollywood aliens are so terrifying and they're huge and they're drooling. But if you see a little fairy, you're not as likely to be quite so terrified. But these are the more common ones, and these are what people call the grays. They're about 3 or 4 feet tall, the big dark eyes that stare into you, and when they do that staring, they can just read your soul and read your intentions and your fears and your loves, and it's really overwhelming. And they don't have much of a profile. That's what always made it hard to accept, because humans have a distinct profile. So I was redrawing these from my small sketches, and when I redrew the profile in this one, I realized it looks kind of like a bean sprout or a plant coming up out of the ground. And they've told me that they use DNA from Earth to work with their bodies, and a lot of times they use plant DNA or tree DNA or from other animals. So I believe this could have been maybe some kind of plant DNA. They've also told me they use photosynthesis rather than eating. So that was in 2003. Then as I was getting my notes together, I found this one from 2007. And I'm like, well, that's pretty much the same being, except the first one had the pretty lips, like maybe it was female, and this one's male. But so they do seem to be quite similar. And then I saw this one, and I didn't date this one, but I think it was around 2004. This was probably the scariest looking one, I think because of the mouth. It's like a puckery, weird looking mouth, but again with the big eyes, the tree frog fingers, the little fin feet that kick in the air as they tread water, and wings that came out when it extended its arms. And again, wings kind of like the fairies, where they're translucent, they're fluttery, they're very delicate, and it made me think that maybe all grays have wings, but they just fold them in, kind of like how ladybugs fold in their wings under a shell, so you don't really see them all the time. But so that was the grays that I've seen. And then, of course, when I read books and hear stories from other people who have seen grays, it just kind of confirms, like, wow, I'm not crazy. It's not just a bad dream, because the dreams do have such a realistic effect that I wake up thinking that had to have really happened on some level of reality. Oh, and this is the profile of the one prior, again, with the really strange profile. And that one almost looks like an octopus. So again, one of their interests in Earth is they're interested in our DNA on the planet, because it's so diversified and so unusual, and a lot of it's not found anywhere else in the universe. So they from what I understand, most of them are geneticists or DNA experts, and they're kind of playing. They take DNA and they experiment with it and use it. So maybe they were playing with some octopus DNA with that guy. And then this one is, she very distinctly told me her name was Atekana. She spelled it out for me. And although she looks really creepy, she was very, very gentle presence. I would wake up and she'd be on the side of my bed and sometimes stroking my hair, especially if I was upset or not feeling well. And she's pure white, transparent, ghost-like, could be mistaken for a ghost, I would think. And one of the times when she visited me, she has these beautiful lips, and she went like this to show these teeth, and they were like these horrible shark teeth. And I kind of gasped and panicked, and so she shut her mouth real fast. But I got the sense that she was really proud of those teeth, like she had been working with some shark DNA maybe, or bear DNA, and wanted to show me, look, I made teeth. Because I don't think they need teeth. I don't think they eat the way we do. They don't have digestive systems like we do, but they kind of they're having fun with it. They see life more as a game and have fun and relax and play with it. And I think that's part of the reason they come and show me these things, because I tend to take things too seriously a lot of the time. And that's part of, as I've been learning not to be so afraid, they've been learning ways to approach me and other humans that don't scare us so much. And by doing things like that, maybe something silly, it can maybe lessen our fear a little bit, because laughter can sometimes make you feel less afraid. And then there was this one, Kaisos, who always calls herself Kaisos of the future. And I know they have a way of traveling in time, but they haven't imparted too much of that knowledge to me. But this one is a little being about 2 or 3 feet tall, and she's very mischievous and playful and looks like a monkey or a cat, and has told me her interest lies with the plants and the trees of Earth, and she's very interested right now because we're doing clear cutting of the forests and destroying the environment, and she's trying to work with that. And I had a dog, I saw her in 2005. I had a dog a beautiful dog. She was a golden retriever, but a mix. So she looked like a golden retriever, but she was pure black. Very intelligent, very sensitive. And she'd often wake me up by sitting by the side of my bed with her head, just her eyes showing. And I'd wake up with a gasp because there's those eyes looking at me. But it would just be my dog. And she had been passed away about 2 months when I woke up and saw that on the side of my bed. And it was Kaiso. That's when Kaisos told me her name. A lot of times they visited for years in the past, but they just started telling me their names in about the 2000s. And before that, I would always ask, what's your name? What's your name? Because it's a human thing. If you can put a name to something, it kind of compartmentalizes it or explains it, and then it's easier to accept a little bit. And they would tell me the names are not important. The messages are what's important. But I think they realize that if we are given names, it helps us to accept them, that they have a personality, that they're real. So they started giving me their names, and then she did that, and then she floated up, again with a little kicky, treading water feet, up above my head, and she told me she had Candy. She had my dog, who had passed away. And that just really put my mind at ease, because, whenever there's a death of someone you love, you wonder where they are, what they're doing. And now that I know my dog has passed into a realm where Kaisos is, I know that's a good thing. So I wasn't sad anymore. And this is one I called the Watchers. It's one that doesn't have a body the way the others do. It's like a glowing light, but a very intelligent presence. And oftentimes I would wake up in the middle of the night feeling that something had just happened, and there would be up in the corner 2 or 3 of these, and the center would be a bright, bright purple light, and it would be swirling. And as it got brighter and stronger, it would start throwing off like sparks or fireworks. And that's what I tried to show in my simple drawing. Cascading down, sometimes shooting up, but mostly cascading down, just like fireworks or sparks. And then it would fade away, and then it would start up again. And it would do that 3 or 4 times. And then when they left, the whole bedroom would be bathed in this beautiful purple light, like a healing, comforting light. And one of the times, a being came and stood to me and showed me a folder that had my birth date, and it said Earth File. And it was understood to me that these are called Watchers, and they come and check in on us. Like, we have a file folder with our birth date and Earth and the choices we made for this life, and they're kind of just checking in to see how we're doing, if we're on our path, if we need maybe some adjusting, or to send someone else into our life to help us along. So they're kind of observing and watching. And again, very positive, very loving energy. And that was also those were what gave me a sense of proof. My husband and I had those glow-in-the-dark stars that you put on your ceiling, and they absorb radiant light from the sun or from your lights, and then when you turn off the lights and go to bed, they stay glowing for about 20 minutes, and then they slowly fade out. Well, I woke up at 3 in the morning with these purple things glowing up my bedroom, and then when they left, I was trying to go back to sleep, and I looked up, and the stars on my ceiling were all lit up. And so if that hadn't been real, how did it give a light source to those glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling? So I do get little confirmations that this this is real. This is really happening. And then this is my main guy. This is Croat. I always thought he was a praying mantis. I saw him for the very first time when I was 8 years old. I woke up with a startle, and I saw him standing at the foot of my bed, and he's about 7 feet tall, and was wearing like a robe, and very regal and strong and powerful, and a lot like a praying mantis, but yet more like a mix of a human also. He has like big powerful legs. He does not have the fins. He has legs and he walks. They're like hairless kangaroo legs, kind of. And his eyes are more black, that typical alien black look. And when I was working in Florida, I came across a mole cricket, which I had never knew what mole crickets were before. And when I saw the face on the mole cricket, I thought, wow, Croat is kind of a cross between those two, actually. He stands upright like a praying mantis, but the front legs and the eyes, the face of the mole cricket also kind of applies to how he looks. He's kind of a mix of the two. He's very intelligent, and he's kind of like, I would call him the doctor when I was little, because if I wasn't feeling well, I would get migraine headaches from a young age. He would come, I'd wake up with bad pain in my head, and he would be standing by the side of my bed, and he would take one of those big, creepy-looking forelegs and kind of just lay it on my forehead, and the pain would just be gone immediately. Or I would just go into a very deep sleep, and then when I woke up, it would be gone. So that's another way he showed me that he's not here to eat us or enslave us or kill us and take over, like a lot of Hollywood stories would have us believe. But he actually cares about me personally, but not just that, he cares about all of humanity and all of the earth. So I wanted to show you this. My editor, Debbie, I live in California, and she lives in this area, and so we only knew each other through email. But when she got my manuscript, she emailed me that day, and she said she went out to have a cup of coffee on her front porch before she started work, and a praying mantis landed on her leg. And then she didn't think much of it because she lives in the forest, and she went inside and started reading my manuscript, and it's all about this praying mantis, and she just had to let me know. And then when I met her at the conference this weekend, she brought me a little praying mantis that had been in her garden for quite some time, and she washed him up and cleaned him up and said, I just had to have him. So I knew that Croat was going to be with me this weekend, but I didn't know in what form. So there he is, I guess. That's like my confirmation. So I was always told I was too sensitive. Probably most of you were too. Crybaby, too sensitive, you need to toughen up, you need to thicken your skin, and made to feel that that was a bad thing. But when people tell you that, it invalidates you because it's who you are. If you're sensitive, it's a part of who you are. So Croat actually told me one time when I was real upset about having been ridiculed about crying too easily or something, he came to me and said, your gentleness is your strength. And again, that was a confirmation that, okay, I'm okay. And it's okay to be sensitive, because by being sensitive, I see things that some other people don't see, and I hear things some other people don't hear, and I feel things other people don't always feel. And that's why I call this translating the alien experience, because I'm able to feel these things and get these things from the aliens. They would like me to translate my experiences and the messages I've learned to others, so that if you're getting these messages or you're having these crazy dreams, and that it's probably real and it's probably really happening, and just find a way to translate it using your own experience, into this reality. Because we all have gifts. Everyone has a unique gift in the world we're given. One of mine was my sensitivity, which I guess is my main one. And your gifts that live here at the core of your being, that's where you feel your most intense emotions. If you're feeling vulnerable, you tend to cross your arms over your solar plexus to protect yourself. And ironically, when the aliens first come to visit you and you're terrified, you feel that fear right here too. It's the same place that you feel your most intense fear. And they explained to me that they do need to do that a certain amount. They don't like to scare us, but it's a necessary thing, because by shaking that up, and that's where we built a wall to protect ourselves, so that we're not so vulnerable, and by being a little bit too scary, they shake that up. They crack open that wall that we built over our solar plexus, and then our gifts can come out, because sometimes we've hidden our gifts even from ourselves. So there's always multiple layers to what they do, what they say, and that's one of them. They don't like to come and scare us, but it's part of the method to get us to acknowledge our gifts and to bring our gifts out into the world and share them. And they've told me there are a lot of people on the earth right now who are not using their unique gifts, and that it's very important to bring it out and shine a light on it and be yourself. And that's more of what the world needs. We don't need people that are all alike. We need people who are unique to talk about what they know and their different experiences. So what they've told me also, because they do want to approach more and more people, I'm one type of translator, and I can translate things through the filter of my experience, my education, my past lives, but they can tell me how to do time travel or how to build a spaceship, and that's way over my head. I don't know engineering, I don't know physics. So if I get a certain concept that they've maybe downloaded to me, and maybe an engineer in Switzerland gets another little concept, and someone in Australia gets another one, if we could all come together and share like puzzle pieces, then we could have some advanced technology. We could get some of that alien technology, because people are saying, why don't they give us their technology? And they want to, but they need to do it through us. We have to do the work here on Earth. And they are sending help, but we have to all get together and share. And right now the world is set up more competitively, where if you invent something or you come up with an idea, you patent it and you keep it to yourself, and you're very secretive about it. But that's keeping so many good things from the world, where if people have one idea and someone else has another idea, and if instead we could share it and cooperate, then maybe our technology could advance and we could make the world a better place. And they've also said technology is not necessarily bad. A lot of us think we have to go back and live in the Stone Age if we want to preserve the earth and the forests and the oceans. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can have our smartphones and our computers and our technology and still take good care of the earth. And they're willing to help us with that. So, and it also might help to know, if you're afraid about them, that we are as alien to them as they are to us. They don't really understand us a whole lot. They didn't understand why they came in our bedrooms to visit, and we'd scream and kick and yell, and why we do some of the things we do, why we're so intelligent and we're so capable, and then we do these petty little wars and things, and we're so brutal and violent, and they're trying to figure that out too. And some of them have made it clear to me that they don't even think humans are very attractive, especially the Greys. Because when you look at other, even on Earth, like a baby panda bear or a puppy or something, how adorable is that? And then you look at a human, it's kind of like, no, not so cute. So some of them, it's kind of like when you have a coworker that you don't really like that much, but you know you have to work with them. So some of them have that attitude. But then there's others like Croat, who just loves us. He's just all about love. He loves everything about humans and humanity. Working with aliens is like being inside a virtual reality game. I know there's games now where a lot of the young people do, where they're sitting in their bedroom on a computer with a controller and the earpiece, and they're playing a game with someone either next door or possibly in Japan or in Europe, but they're all playing the same game and they're all talking at the same time. And that's a lot what it is with the aliens. They want us to know that life is kind of a game, that we should lighten up, play with it more. And they're playing the same game, but they have different rules, and they have a different screen they're looking at, and they have different controllers. But basically, it's all the same game. The game is to make life better for everyone. And just like a game, the levels of reality move up. As we learn and grow, we move up. And that's where Earth is at this point right now, where it's getting to the point where we need to move up to the next level. And that's why consciousness is improving, and there's a lot of spiritual things going on in the world, a lot of changes, and they're helping with that because humanity and the earth and the animals and everyone needs to move up a level to get to a better place. Because if we continue the way we're going, it's not looking good. It's looking kind of destructive and harmful. But they won't let us have a nuclear war. They've already proved that. They're not allowed to interfere too much because we all have free will. But if it comes to the point that we're going to blow up the earth or do something really terrible that's going to affect other dimensions and other beings and other worlds, they can interfere then and put a stop to it. So I've never been afraid of a nuclear war. And I wanted to know how they find us. Me, like most other contactees, have moved a lot. And I think it's a subconscious thing to kind of get away, and hide from them. But they always find you no matter where you go. And so Crowd explained to me that we live and have our being in something called the ethers, which is like the Force of Star Wars, or divine mind, or just the unified field, is what the scientists call it. And it's kind of like an atmosphere, like the way I see them swimming in our atmosphere. And they are able to kind of drop concepts and ideas into the ethers as humanity is ready to receive them. And people who are sensitive and aware can pick up those ideas and work with it and bring new inventions, bring maybe healings, cures, medical cures. But the way they see us as individuals, I know some people talk about implants. As far as I know, I don't have an implant. I've had CAT scans and MRIs and things and nothing ever showed up. But Croat also showed me that we each have auras with our different colors and shapes and patterns in our colorful auras that surround our bodies. And he showed me mine looks kind of like a sea anemone with the little tentacles that reach out. And if I'm around people that I feel a connection with, the tentacles stretch out and they kind of interact with each other as an energy exchange. And that's why you feel good around certain people or get more energy. And if you're around someone who's maybe negative, hurtful, violent, your aura withdraws like a sea anemone when you poke it. And many, many people right now are walking around in the world with their auras drawn in because there is so much fear and hurtful situations and hurtful people in the world right now. And a lot of our language reflects that, like show your true colors, let your light shine. That all means let your aura expand, feel free to open it up. In a group like this, you can open it up and it feels wonderful. And so he showed me that's how they recognize people, is not only with their auras, but he took me to a scene on a New York City street where it was very crowded, lots of people, busy. And each person walking on that sidewalk had thought forms around their heads, like bees buzzing around a hive. And each person's thought forms look different. They look like cartoon speech bubbles in a way. And the angry ones are pointed, and the sad or fearful, or the sad ones are kind of gray or black, and the fearful ones might be red or orange. And the loving ones shine really bright, like little bubbles, like rainbow bubbles. And that's how they can find us. They look for the bright lights, the rainbow bubbles. So the more we have gratitude and appreciation and love, it's easier for them to find us. And that's the kind of people they're looking for, because they're looking for the positive upliftment. So that's how they can see us and find us. And he told me that it is important, again, to have your aura stretched out as much as possible, because when they do drop those ideas and suggestions into the ethers, it's easier to find it and see it and grab it. And it works for a lot of things. Like before the year 2000, a lot of us had concerns that there was going to be some big catastrophe or disaster at the Y2K. And a lot of movies came out about that time. And the movies were inspired by ideas the aliens had put into the ethers because they wanted us to upgrade our consciousness at that time. Things could have gone bad, but it turns out, I guess we did improve our consciousness enough that nothing really terrible happened during that time. But for example, the movies Armageddon and Deep Impact both came out in 1998, and they were both about asteroids destroying the Earth. Very similar, but completely different actors, different movie studios, different writers. And in 1997, Dante's Peak and Volcano, same thing, where it was volcanoes that were going to destroy a bunch of the earth. So that was seeded by them. Those ideas were seeded by them. And then, of course, the creative people took the ideas and ran with them. And it's such a common thing that it's even called multiple discovery or simultaneous invention when it happens with medical breakthroughs or inventions. And, for example, Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison were both working on the electricity at the same time. So, and this is a big message. One night I was crying and upset. Not too long ago, a couple of years ago, I was upset about the way my course of my life had gone. I'd had a lot of losses and struggle with health, and we all have days like that where it's like, why am I even here? What am I doing? And then I was reading things about you create your own reality, and I thought, well, that just made me feel worse because I'm not in a good situation. Why would I create this? I must have been really crazy that day. So I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. And that night when I went to sleep, Croak came to me and he took me with a whoosh. When it's something really a big deal, I hear and feel a whoosh as I'm kind of lifted out of my body and go out into the stars. And then he took me to this field where there was a longhouse, I think they call it. It's like a Viking banquet hall, where big, long building, and there were tables. We went inside, and it was filled. I mean, there were so many people, dozens of people, and there were fire pits, and there were torches lighting the walls, and it was celebration, joy. Everybody was happy and feasting and talking and laughing, and in the center of the room was a big, heavy wooden oak table laden with goblets and platters and candelabra lighting them, and I thought it was some kind of smorgasbord or something. And Croach showed me standing at the head of the table with my 3 spirit guides, and I looked like me, but not really me. I was kind of a light, glowing person, and he explained this was just prior to my incarnation in this life. And so I was taken into that person, and I was handed a platter, and a big golden platter, and handed a set of golden tongs, and went over to the table. And imagine my surprise, it wasn't food and it wasn't drink. It was life choices and life challenges, childhood friends, homes I might live in. And you take these and you load them up on your platter as you're choosing how this life is going to play out. And certain things are preset. You've chosen your parents. You may have chosen your astrological influences, your numerological influences. But then once you're born and you go through the veil of forgetting, and free will comes into play, it's kind of a crapshoot what happens after that, and everybody else has free will, so it's, nothing is for sure. So this table was possibilities and probabilities. And so it was some good things, having a healthy baby and, a happy childhood, and then there were some bad things. And I walked along and I loaded up divorce, and then I set the tongs down and I moved along, and I went back and I grabbed another divorce, and one of my guides kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Don't you think that's a little bit too much?" I said, no, I can handle this. And then I moved on down and picked, migraine headaches, and then I picked chronic illness when later in life, and I could tell my guides were like rolling their eyes, but because I was going to go through the veil of forgetting and forget I chose all this, they were going to be fully alert and aware, and they were going to have to listen to me whine and moan and cry and complain about all this. And they kept saying, are you sure you want to do this? And the main one that really struck me was financial hardship. I was loading that up, and so that's always been a struggle. And again, my guide kind of took me aside and said, every living being on earth in this lifetime is having some kind of financial hardship. It's part of the deal to be alive on earth at this time. Even the animals and the trees, like when the forests are clear-cut, when the animals are pushed to extinction, it was all chosen because we're all paying back karmic debts from a long, long time ago, and every one of us has had times where we've abused power, abused wealth, abused influence, and we all came in this time to try to make up for that, and we all agreed to a certain amount of financial hardship in this lifetime. So I was thinking, great, that's a lifetime thing. But it is paying back a huge karmic debt, and it's part of helping to elevate the earth. It's getting rid of that. that ancient history so that we can elevate the earth to another level without that struggle and that karma holding on to us. So again, I was loading that up, and he said, don't you think that's a little much because you already have the group karmic debt going on? And I said, no, I can handle it. And that was my answer to everything. I can handle it. So when I got back, I asked Crow, and this is another, how our words reflect other levels of reality. When we say someone has too much on their plate, that's kind of, maybe they overloaded their plate prior to being born. So after we got back, I asked Crow, how could I have been so naive to have chosen all this? And it does make it easier when I read You Create Your Own Reality, because on that level, yes, apparently I did. But he told me that that's when he told me every single human and non-human and every living being on the earth at this time is here to do a lot of hard work. It's not an easy lifetime. We've had easy lifetimes on other planets or in Hawaii before civilization, where we could just swim and play on the beach and eat coconuts all day, and we've all had lifetimes like that. But this one is not one of them. This one, we all came in knowing it was going to be hard work. And he said, we are like warriors. We're like the ground crew, and we're pretty tough. We may not feel like we are, but everybody here is really tough, and we're here to do an important job. And when he said we're warriors, I thought he was being sarcastic, because sometimes he does get a little sarcastic. But no, he was dead serious, because in their eyes, warriors aren't with guns and spears and swords. They're people that spread love and light and healing, and they have a completely different definition of warrior than we do. So also, people who don't believe in aliens, you might try to talk to someone, if you believe in them, and you might try to talk to someone else, and they're just adamantly, no way, that doesn't happen, it doesn't exist, it's not real. That's okay, because they didn't put alien interaction on their plate this time. They have other things they're working on, and no amount of you trying to convince them is going to change that, because they didn't choose that to be part of their life experience this time. And same thing with soulmates. People either seem to strongly believe in soulmates or believe that's not possible. And the same thing, because if you're coming into this life to do a certain kind of work and your soulmate is off on another planet or not incarnate this time, it would be kind of cruel to program yourself to believe in soulmates and be looking for a soulmate if there's no chance that you would ever meet that person. And I obviously chose alien interaction as part of my life plan, but to remind myself along the way, my dad, he was an Air Force pilot, and he looked like James T. Kirk. He looked like William Shatner. And he acts like him, and he talks like him. He's 93 years old, and he's still going strong. And he still loves flying and talks about space. And when I was a little girl, we'd sit and watch Star Trek together. And that kind of just, it was a confirmation for me that, yeah, I did choose that, and I chose him as my dad. But they are saying that now, because we are at a critical point, a kind of a tipping point or a turning point for the earth, people have to raise the consciousness enough to move us into that next level, that higher dimension of love and peace and harmony. Even if you didn't choose alien interaction, you can now. They are willing to work with anybody and everybody who's willing to work with them. And you have to ask because of free will. You have to ask, and you need to show positive intent. They need to know that you're not going to use anything you learn from them to manipulate people or, for selfish purposes or to lie or anything. They look at your true intent. They read your heart when they're staring into your eyes like that. They know everything about you. They know your hopes and your fears and your past and your future, and they'll know if you're faking it. But if you genuinely want to interact with them and make the world a better place, they want you to. So if you start asking, and I think the best thing is to start doing what I did. Keep a journal, a pen, and a notepad by your bed. And when you first wake up, even if you think you don't have dreams, just write down whatever comes to mind, the first thoughts or feelings, or sketch something, or even if it's a song stuck in your head, or even just a color, like the color purple, just start writing it down. And the more you do it, the more they'll help you. It's like you take a step forward and they'll take a step forward, and you take a step forward and they'll take a step forward until they're actually interacting quite a bit with you. So Jesus had told us that we must become as little children to enter the kingdom of heaven. And what we're doing now is trying to make the earth more like heaven on earth, with peace and prosperity and healing. And what children do is look through the world with wide eyes, wonder. They believe in magic, they believe in fairies, they believe the flowers talk to them. And so we need to get back to that point too, where we believe anything is possible. And instead of just shutting it down and saying, oh, that's not real, that can't be happening, how would a child react to that? Maybe it is possible. Maybe it is really happening. If there's a chorus of birds singing outside your bedroom window in the morning, and their first thought is, wow, they're singing that just for me. And then you say, no, they wouldn't be doing that. Well, maybe they are. Maybe they are singing just for you that morning. And part of the way to get to that point is to try to reduce the fear in your heart, because we all have so much fear right now. And it's worse with the news. You turn on the news and it's fear, 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 because fear sells. The movies shows the aliens being terrifying because fear sells. So sometimes you need to turn off the news and go out in nature, or play with a puppy, or meditate, or put on soft music, and focus on gratitude and love and people that you love, things that make you feel good, because fear and love are opposites. And if you have fear in your heart, love can't be there. But if you have love in your heart, fear can't be there. They can't exist in the same place at the same time. So I know it's hard, but try to focus more on love and keep that more as your prominent thought and feeling. And fear comes disguised as anger, frustration, guilt, shame, jealousy, a lot of the emotions that make you feel bad. So try to, work on that, and you'll feel better. It gives you more peace and tranquility. And I'm really grateful for the alien interaction, even though it was terrifying for many years and made me feel ostracized from other people because I thought I was weird and crazy and was scared to tell anyone. But they've given me this huge expanded worldview and opened me to possibilities that something like that is an intelligent being, way more intelligent than I am, and compassionate and loving. And I would have been literally sleepwalking through my life if they had not awakened me. So, again, this is a lifetime of hard work. We're all here, and we're all here to share it together. Because if life was easy, humans take the course of least resistance. We'd get lazy, we wouldn't do anything. So we've made these challenges and these difficulties to keep us going, keep us fighting throughout this lifetime. And when this lifetime is over, we're going to be high-fiving each other across the universe. Yes, we did it. We brought the earth up a level. But in the meantime, we have some hard work to do. And all of us, you and me, all of us, we were making those choices and saying, I can handle it, and guess what? We can handle it. So that's the end of my presentation, but I was going to take questions, if anyone has questions. Oh, yes.
I never thought I ever came in contact with an alien, never saw a spaceship. I always felt like I had been missing something because so many people that I knew had had an experience similar to yours, and I believed them, but I didn't think that I ever had until I saw the purple light that you showed up there.
Wow.
Because from the very first time that I began to meditate, I saw a purple pulsating light. And I thought for a while that I only saw it when my eyes were closed. And then something inside of me one day while I was meditating said, open your eyes, it's still there. And it was.
Wow.
And a couple of times I've seen purple orbs. And I don't know how I would define them. I saw them as being spiritual. And I don't know if there is really any defining line between spiritual and alien contact. And so I wondered what you thought of that.
Oh, yeah, it seems kind of connected. Like when my dog passed away and went to be with the aliens, and a lot of the messages I get are very highly spiritual. So it's hard to say if they come with from the same place or what happens, but they're definitely interested in spirit. And like I have asked them as far as a creator, their spiritual beliefs, and they also find it kind of silly that we fight over religion so much, because to them it's just a given that there is a creator, that everything has been created, and we all exist in that creator's infinity, even though we're all, again, at different levels, different phases of reality. So, yeah, as far as the purple lights, it could be a spiritual being. Like when I was at the Viking banquet table, those were spirit guides that were helping me make the choices. They weren't aliens, but it was an alien that took me to watch that. So I think they all kind of work together. They're all on the same page, as far as I can tell.
I want to say, first of all, that I've been to maybe 2 or 3 dozen UFO conferences, and yours is one of my all-time favorite presentations ever.
Oh, thank you so much. I was so nervous. Thank you.
You mentioned the significance of Y2K as maybe a critical point, a turning point for us. Has Croat or your entities told you about any other critical points that we've passed through or maybe are about to pass through, such as the upcoming solar eclipse that goes straight across the country, our country, on August 21st this summer?
Oh, I haven't heard of that. I was still, from the whole Y2K, when nothing happened with that, I was still pretty apprehensive that something bad might happen, because I felt like humanity has to get shaken up. We're just, everybody's living in a selfish little greed-driven life, and we have to wake up and see the big picture more. And I was real concerned about the December 21st, 2012 Mayan calendar ending. I had stocked up supplies. I really thought that was going to finish everything. But then that came and went also. But their messages changed a lot after that. They changed from more fear-based and showing me scenes of destruction of the earth to more the love and awaken other people, spread the message. So I think our group consciousness did reach a point right around 2012, and we just reached kind of a tipping point, just enough to avoid massive disasters. Obviously, there are still some disasters going on and some bad things, but I don't foresee any really horrible things happening, maybe small things here and there, but it seems like, that 100th monkey thing where enough people kind of get it now and are working, praying, meditating, healing, that I think we have turned a corner and we're on a better path now.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh boy, did I choose side of alien interaction.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I chose a side of alien interaction. It's a bunch. And it's also mantis related as well, so I just wanted to comment on that. So thank you for putting that up there. And at first, I'd never thought of them as ETs or aliens. They were very spiritual. When they first appeared, they didn't look like mantises, and finally they did. And it wasn't until I started reading books and seeing past life regressions and eventually where Dolores went into custodians and such, where it was apparent that these things were happening, and it was very typical for me. Mm-hmm. So hearing you say these things and the message of love is extraordinarily important for me, because it validates what I've been experiencing with these mantis type creatures or entities.
Great.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your presentation.
Well, you're welcome. That validates for me too, when I hear another person that's got the same thing going on.
Hi, I have something to add to that. It's just my own experience. Earlier this year I was with Julia in Manchester at the Awaken conference, which it's a new conference in England. And Julia was speaking and I was manning the books, and she was inundated with people after her talk, signing books and things, and there were people wanting to speak to her and they couldn't speak to her immediately, so they came to me and say, I want to show these pictures to Julia can you give them to her? They were showing them to me on their iPhone. And I said, yeah, email them to me and I'll email them to Julia. And as they were showing them to me, there were all sorts of beautiful pictures made through iPad applications, amazing pictures. And there was a mantis, and she's just scrolling through these pictures. She said, oh, by the way, that one's for you. And I said, oh, a mantis. Oh, okay. And it was a really beautiful picture, but I'm not really an insect person at all. So she emailed them to me. I went back to the hotel. I opened up my computer and looked at it, and there's this, blue mantis picture, and I just felt all this love come out of the picture.
Wow.
And it really surprised me because I'm not an ET person. I'm not I'm not an insect person. I'm not, I don't see things. I don't hear things. And it really, really surprised me. And since then, there'll be other things that have happened, but I just wanted to share that.
That's great. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Thank you. This has been very informative. I was just wondering, where do they come from?
I've asked them, and they have actually taken me on a ship one time to a little tiny, tiny little planet, so small you could see the curvature, and it looked like it was completely covered with oceans, kind of with this color oceans, with little tiny islands that were white, heaped up. They looked like mashed potatoes, kind of. And they landed on a crescent-shaped beach and took me underground, and apparently the beings there live underground in tunnels and caves, and they're lit. Somehow the rocks are lit and glowing, and waterfalls, and it was very beautiful, but I don't get the feeling that's exactly where they're from. That might even be like a little vacation planet they go to or something. So I, like Kaisos of the future, I started thinking maybe there are descendants, because they're playing with Earth DNA. Maybe they're from several thousand years in the future. And then I thought, well, that couldn't be right because I don't have any descendants. And then 10 years later, I have grandchildren. I now have descendants. So maybe they are our descendants. But they could come from the future. They could come from the past. Or another thing that makes a lot of sense to me is they come from another dimension, because they've told me we can only, with these eyes and ears, we can only see a very limited range of things on the planet. And so who's to say that they aren't right here, but in a range that we can't see, hear, or feel with these bodies. And that would explain why they're so concerned about the environment and about our nuclear bombs and nuclear testing, because if we did do anything, it would obviously damage them too. So I really don't have an answer as to exactly where they come from.
That's very informative. Another dimension. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Two things. The Hopis had a prophecy that if we went down the hard road, the negative road, that this rock in the desert would break in half to indicate that. And if it broke off to one side, that we would go down the more light path. Giant rock in, what desert is that? Mojave Desert. That rock broke off the side. We are on the lighter path. So
wow,
that's one good thing to know. And
yeah, thank you.
Joshua Tree, yeah, Joshua Tree. It's out there by the Tegratron, which is a really cool place to meditate, by the way. And then there was something else. Trying to remember now. It keeps running away. I've had contact with some beings that are from another dimension. Indians call them water babies. And they said that when we started testing nuclear devices and using nuclear devices in the war, that in their world, it would rip through their world as what they call blue lightning. And that blue lightning would paralyze them. It would contaminate their food source, which were little energy blobs. Then they would float around and eat these energy blobs. And if they ate a contaminated one, they would freeze. They don't have death, but they would just simply stop moving and stop being able to think and stop being able to communicate with each other. So that's their closest idea of death. And they've never had that at all, so they were terrified of it. And they said that they were very terrified of our wars because weapons like that do go through the dimensional barriers.
That makes sense, why they're so concerned about, especially the nuclear weapons.
So I had night terrors as a child, and just listening to your presentation, I believe I did have interactions, and as an adult just now learning that. But I have very vivid dreams. I do want to share one, if I may.
Sure.
I was on a spaceship, and one of the aliens, I called him the captain, and I started jokingly calling him Captain Nemo. And so I was showing him, like Jules Verne, Nautilus, and he thought that was funny, and that was okay. So I call him Captain Nemo.
Yeah, they love humor. They really, when they realize we can get past our fear enough to appreciate humor, they really like humor.
I'm just curious, how many here have seen UFOs? Okay, well, I'm going to share my experience. It was probably back in the summer of '07. My husband and I were driving in central Illinois, and we were in a convertible. We wanted to put the top down. It was a beautiful summer night. Stars were out. I get out of the car and put on the jacket. I look up, and there's these lights darting, a dozen or so, darting across the sky. And they look like stars, but they were moving different directions. I asked my husband, do you see what I'm seeing? Because he's very practical and, not into this voodoo stuff. Anyway, I watched probably for 20 seconds watching these, and they were coming in and out of a huge mother ship. I assume it was a huge light, that the little ones were about the size of a star, but the mothership I remembered being like a street lamp. But what amazed me the most was I was watching this, and they would zoom from one horizon in 3 or 4 seconds. You could follow it with your eyes, but they were gone so fast, I knew it wasn't a plane. Then after 20 seconds, they just vanished all at once. Boom, they were off. And I'd read Dolores's books, so I assumed they'd gone back to their other dimension, lower up, just vanish out of sight. But I asked Dolores when she hypnotized me what this was about, what had happened. Because Mike and I had different memories. I remembered a streetlight size of the mothership, and he just remembered one that looked like Venus. So I don't know what happened there. And when Dolores asked, I shouted out, she's not supposed to know this, which kind of blew me away. But I even asked Guy Needler once, and he said, they were just showing you that they're there. And they're all over, and they're watching and protecting us, but no fear at all. I mean, that's what amazed me, because I always figured I'd freak out if it happened, but no, they take care of that somehow.
Yeah, they've gotten
They
better
really
at
do.
it over the years, so not to scare us so much. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you had a question. No, I guess that's it. Okay, well, thank you.